Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and in this video, we are going to be talking about the Tzeentch faction preview that's come out on Warhammer Community for Age of Sigmar 4. I'm joined by the Twitch chat, and we've just been looking through these rules for the past few hours, and let me tell you that this is already my favorite faction preview so far. And I've got a bunch of reasons as to why, but I'm so excited to actually be genuinely really pumped about this faction preview. So let's dive straight in. If you don't know much about Tzeentch, Tzeentch is the god or chaos god of magic, the changer of ways, the manipulator, and that's kind of their background. Normally, they use a lot of demons, but there are also a bunch of mortals who've dedicated themselves to Tzeentch as well. But generally, when you think Tzeentch, you think of magic and you think of fire. Those are the two things to do. So the first thing we're going to look at are the battle traits. If you are collecting a Disciples of Tzeentch army, then your army is going to be affected by and able to use battle traits. They're kind of your army special rules. So those are the first things that we're going to look at. And let me tell you that these are decked. These are absolutely squatting massive plates of quality battle trait. So if you're looking to get into Tzeentch, feeling great already. The first one is incredibly famous, and if you would like to make someone's eyes roll into the back of their head, then you say that you're going to be using your Destiny dice. And these are masters, or the rule is called Masters of Destiny, and you do this during your deployment phase. You roll 9 dice and you place them to one side. These are your Destiny dice. Destiny dice can be spent during the battle to change certain dice rolls, and you can never have more than 9 Destiny dice at once. Yeah, the best way to describe them, thank you to Robert the Druid in the chat, is that they are cheating dice. They're cheater dice. They're dice you can just legally cheat with, and it's amazingly good. I did not think that they were going to make it into Age of Sigmar 4, and here they are. During the battle, instead of making a roll from the list of abilities below, you can spend your Destiny dice. The roll would have made is replaced with a roll on the Destiny dice you spend. If you want to replace a 2d6 roll or a 3d6 roll, you've got to spend that number of Destiny dice, equal to the number before d6. Any rolls that have been replaced count as unmodified rolls, that's really important, and they cannot be re-rolled. They cannot be changed, and they cannot be modified by other friendly abilities, but a really great quality of life thing here is they can be modified by enemy abilities, which I really like. That's really good, seeing as you're already cheating. You cannot spend Destiny dice to replace re-rolls. So effectively what happens is, you say, I'd like to do a thing, I'm going to use my Destiny dice instead of rolling for it. Okay? So, first up, Destiny dice, what can you use them for? You use them for casting rolls. That's great. This is an army that is going to rely heavily on magic. Unbinding rolls, also excellent as well, shutting down enemy spells. Banishment rolls, for getting rid of all of those endless spells and banishments. Run rolls is good. Run rolls is okay. Charge rolls in your turn is so nice. Let me tell you, so nice. Hit rolls, wound rolls, and save rolls. Now, some of them are very effective. Like the charge roll is very effective because getting your unit into combat is so important. And it means if you've got 2 6s in your Destiny dice, you're always making a 12-inch charge. That's amazing, right? Wound rolls and save rolls and hit rolls are kind of like whatever, but in the right situation, they work really well. Okay, now the reason that I'm so excited, Destiny dice stay in. I think some people hate it, some people love it. Let me know in the comments below. I should have said this. Please let me know what you think about all these changes in the comments. Tell me what you think about them. Do you play Tzeentch? Are you going to play Tzeentch? Please leave them all in the comments so I love reading them. And in every faction focus, I've learned a lot. From the KO one, I learned that people don't like units getting in and out of boats, but that surprised me, but here we go. So, the next bit is a bit that's got me super, super excited about how this army is going to work, and it's new. First one is Conflagration of Tzeentch. Once per turn for your entire army in any shooting phase, so that is going to mean that it's in your turn and your opponent's turn, you can pick an enemy unit that had any damage points allocated to it by a Weirdflame spell ability, or shooting attacks made with weapons that have the Weirdflame weapon ability to be the target. The effect is the target has the burning keyword. So, some spells, and we haven't seen any in this article, are going to have the Weirdflame spell ability. I'm almost certain there's going to be some sort of unlimited spell, which means multiple casters are going to be able to cast the same spell, which is going to have the Weirdflame keyword. But the bit that's got me super excited is that some units have the Weirdflame weapon ability. I'm just going to scroll down quickly to one of the units we're going to look at in a moment and showcase that. So if we go and look at the Gaunt Summoner, not the Gaunt Summoner, sorry, the Curseling, you can see the Curseling has got a ranged missile weapon, and the ability on the right-hand side has got the Weirdflame ability. And the reason that this is really exciting, because it's the first time that we've seen a unique ability on a weapon outside of the core ones, which they've already showcased and already talked about, like critical mortals or anti-monster. The reason that's exciting is it means in the future that they can add more flavor to weapons and spells through keywords to apply effects. And this is something I didn't think they were going to do. I thought that they were just going to stick with those really core ones and they weren't going to add much flavor beyond that. And I think this is brilliant because it means that some units, some armies are going to be able to really add that kind of narrative flavor to their weapon attacks, their profiles. I think that's so fun. So this is actually something I'm super excited about. So, sorry about that long thing, but I just wanted to talk about something that was dope in rules. So, effectively, if you attack a unit and they are wounded by a Weirdflame spell or Weirdflame ability, that unit now has the burning keyword. Perfect. Next up, you have a once per turn ability that's done at the end of any turn, so that'll be your turn, your opponent's turn, and it's also done for your whole army. So you're only going to do it once per turn, and it's the Burning Weirdflame. The effect is that you roll a d3 for each burning enemy unit on a 2 to 3 inflicted amount of mortal damage equal to the roll. However, on a 1, which is going to happen a third of the time, that unit no longer has the burning keyword. Now, you're going to be like, oh, it doesn't sound very strong, and maybe it doesn't end up being very strong. I'm not really excited for it being strong or not strong. I'm excited for the cool mechanic of it, where in my turn I could shoot you and that unit is burning, and if we remember, there are command abilities in your opponent's turn to do a spell and a shooting attack. So there's the potential to make one of the units in their turn also have the burning keyword. So now 2 units are burning, and maybe there'll be other characters or units or artifacts that are going to be able to make more units be burning, which is cool, which means 2/3 of the time, they're going to take D3 mortal damage at the end of each turn. So they apply a damage over time ability, which is super fun. There's also a passive called Quenching the Flames, that if a burning enemy unit uses an ability that would heal or return slain models to it, instead of healing or returning slain models, that unit no longer has the burning keyword. Now, this is also really exciting as well, because it's going to stop enemy units potentially from healing massively. Let's say some units really rely on their healing, like we haven't seen anything like that, but something in the hero phase heals 2d6 every time. You're like, whoa, that's loads of healing. You could burn it, and so that then that big heal isn't going to go off. And because of the counter ability of being able to use spells and shooting attacks in your opponent's turn, you could potentially shut down healing a lot. Really fun. Will it be effective in game? I don't know, but it's thematic and it's engaging, and I'm just a huge fan of it, so I think that's great. Next up, we're going to look at battle formations. Battle formations are what you pick after you choose your army list, and you're going to play a Tzeentch, and then you choose from 4 different battle formations at the launch of Age of Sigmar 4 for each faction, which is cool. And they're going to kind of change how your army plays. They're sub-factions, if you will, but they're more... Well, they've moved away from the concept of a sub-faction. Instead, they're more of like an army style. This one is the Weirdflame Host, and it's got a passive ability called the Mutagenic Inferno. The effect is that you subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made by burning enemy units. This is very exciting because, again, that's a massive debuff. If we look to the Cities of Sigmar preview, you only got -1 to wound in the first turn. This is something you're going to be able to apply to your enemy's strongest units and make them -1 to wound. That is very strong. Obviously, they have the ability to do things like rally, to try to heal the burning ability off them. But in my opinion, that's very strong and is very good. Also, people have pointed out the ugly-ass flamers, and I agree. I would say the fact that we're seeing this weird flame ability and the burning ability, that over the course of Age of Sigmar 3, here's a little bet with everyone, I think we're going to see new flamers and a bunch new Tzeentch models coming out, because they normally don't write rules like this unless they're going to bring out some new models for them. So we'll see if that ends up being true. I also say they're ugly models, owning 18 of them, so let's just be clear. All right, next up, we're going to look at the Arcana and Incantations. When you write your army list, on your army list, you have to know which spell law your army is going to choose from. Most armies are going to only have access to 1 spell law. they have pointed out in this article that Tzeentch is going to have access to 2 spell laws. Each of those spell laws, it seems like, at least an index release, is only going to have 3 spells in the spell law. So that's going to be quite interesting. Also, endless spells are something that or a manifestation law or something that you are also going to write into your army list as well. So when you write your army list, you're going to choose a spell law and you can choose a manifestation law. That's pretty good because there's a limited number of spells. It's going to be pretty useful to have more spells to cast with your Tzeentch army because you've got a lot of spells to cast. Next up, we're going to look at the one spell that they've shown off from the Law of Change. There are 2 laws, Law of Change and Law of Fate. The first one is Transformed to Spawn, which you do in your hero phase, and it's cast on 7. You pick a friendly Disciple Tzeentch Wizard to cast this spell and pick a visible enemy unit within 12 inches. You inflict D3 mortal damage on that target, and if enemy models were slain by this ability, you pick a friendly Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch unit that is in reserve as a potential fate or that has been destroyed. If you picked a unit in reserve as a potential fate, set up on the battlefield in combat with a target. If you picked a unit that's been destroyed, set up an identical replacement unit on the battlefield in combat with a target. Problematically, they haven't described in this entire article what as a potential fate is. Now, we're all kind of guessing at the idea that what's going to happen is you might buy a spawn in your army list, and that will be put to the side as a potential fate. Or on the spawn's war scroll, a spawn will be classified as is free and then is just put on the side as a potential fate. What's quite fun is that maybe then different armies can choose different potential fates, which could be really exciting. Different war scrolls for different potential fates, but we haven't seen any of those things. Okay, we haven't seen any of those things so far, so we don't know. It does then go on to say in the article that there is no summoning units from nothing in the new edition. Previously, Tzeentch had access to summoning, and this is the first of these army overviews that we've seen where summoning would be very effective or is very commonplace. So maybe there'll be no summoning in Age of Sigmar 4, which I think some people will be excited about, some people will be less excited about. I'm not really sure right now, but we don't know what that's going to look like. But I think we're going to see less to almost no summoning in the game, which could be quite interesting. It also goes on to talk about the fact that the other spell law that you can choose, the Law of Fate, gives you the ability to control Destiny dice and use Destiny dice to do some other stuff. So that's quite fun. So using that Destiny dice mechanic. They have shown off a little bit of the Spawn War Scroll, but they haven't shown off the whole Spawn War Scroll. So again, we don't really know why they haven't shown off the whole thing, but we don't, as of yet, understand what this kind of reserve putting units to the side means. The passive ability on the spawn, though, is each friendly Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch unit can be replaced by any number of times. And it goes on to say that obviously one of the problematic things is that normally in a game you can't resummon a destroyed unit, but this passive is going to let you do that, which is cool. So there we go. So I think we might see less summoning. We already know from the preview match that we saw previously, it looks like the points are pretty much up 25% across the board. So 25% less models on the board is going to be interesting. Less summoning. Maybe they're trying to make it so you have to put less on the board. Let me know what you think about that. First unit we're going to look at is Kairos Fateweaver, and he is the titular leader. He is the faction leader for the Disciples of Tzeentch, and he's got an incredibly interesting war scroll, especially compared to some of the other ones we've seen previously. Let's start out with the fact that he's got 16 health and a 5-up save, which makes him fairly fragile, but he's also been given a 5-up ward save, which is going to make him a little bit more survivable. In my opinion, he is a wizard and can cast 3 spells. I personally would like to see him cast a lot more spells. I would like to talk about this in a separate video, but I'd say 6. But cast 3 spells and has always done so. He's a monster. He's also unique, so you can only take 1 copy of him. And he's also got a War Master keyword, which again, we're not sure what that does. Okay. So he's a 3-cast wizard, and he's fairly survivable. 16 wounds, 5-up save, and a 5-up ward save. But things like Yanastra or even Talia Vedra, who we saw from the Cities of Sigmar preview, both of which I think would be able to kick their ass, Kairos' ass, in a single turn. So need to be a bit cautious. In combat is fine, with the Staff of Tomorrow having 4 attacks that do D3 damage and the Beak having 5 attacks that do 2 damage. He's got, all monsters, a passive ability. If he gets 2 damaged, his curved beaks goes from 5 attacks to 3 attacks. That's fine. To help him as a wizard, he's got 2 abilities. Mastery of Magic is whenever you make a casting roll, then you can change the lowest d6 because you cast on 2 dice to cast a spell, the lowest d6 to the highest d6. So if I roll a 5 and a 2, I'll get 2 5s. That's quite interesting. A little bit about this used to be for dispels and unbinds as well, and is now only for casting. So he's good at casting, but not necessarily as an anti-magic piece. He's also got another passive called Beacon of Sorcery, where you add 1 to casting rolls and unbinding rolls for friendly disciples Tzeentch wizards, where they're wholly within 12 inches of this unit. And that is obviously going to help with unbinding. I think that's going to be important, and also to casting, which means Kairos, whenever he casts, is going to be the highest dice twice plus 1. So I think the average dice kit is cast is about a 9 every time, which is really nice. That helps him as a wizard. He's also got a unique spell called Arcane Suggestion. This used to be a lore spell, so now it's a spell on his war scroll. It's cast on an 8. You pick an visible enemy unit within 18 inches, and you pick one of 3 effects. First one is it's hopeless, and the target cannot use commands, which is very good if your opponent is relying on one specific command to make it work. Drop your weapons is subtract 1 from hit and wound rolls for the target's attack, and this is obviously incredibly good, seeing as you've already got burning to make units -1 to wound, and you've got kneel where you subtract 1 from save rolls for the target, which is also good in a turn in which you're going to want to definitely nuke one of their big expensive pieces. So all great, and Arcane Suggestion is great. But where Kairos, who is a twin-headed Lord of Change that can see both into the future and at the past at the same time, really is going to excel is that he is a bird of points, a points bird, because he's got this ability called Oracle of Eternity, where once per battle, as a reaction to you declaring a tactical gambit ability, which is where you choose a battle tactic, which is how you score points or some of the points, you can do one of 2 effects. So it's only once per battle, and it's when you choose a battle tactic. The first one is you can pick 1 battle tactic that you have already attempted. As I read that does not mean attempted and failed. So this does mean that if there is an easy battle tactic to do it in turn 1, use this ability, and do it in turn 2. Pretty nice, even if you currently suggested it. Next up, you've got Read the Future, where you can pick 2 battle tactics that you have not yet attempted, but you can only complete one of them, even if you meet the conditions to complete both. The other does not count as having been attempted. If you do not complete either battle tactic, you can pick which does not count as having been attempted. So one of the things that I think is really cool about this is that this gives you the opportunity to be really risky. Do the risky battle tactic that you're not sure if you can do, and then do the guaranteed battle tactic. We've already seen a lot of the battle tactics from Age of Sigmar 4. Some of them are just as simple as have 2 units on the board edge. But this is pretty fun, because what this means is that you can try that really risky, very difficult to do battle tactic, and if it doesn't pay off, just go for the safety one that's already there, which is really nice. And then the one that you risked, you count as having not chosen. I think some people are going to be a little bit frustrated with this, because this feels like a bit of a give me. This is very thematic and very cool, in my opinion, but also is going to be quite strong, because scoring points is really how you win the game. And so I think some people are going to find this a little OTT, but we'll have to see how many points Kairos costs and stuff like that. But as a war scroll for a character faction leader, it feels pretty good. So I'd just like to see him cast more spells. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the Gaunt Summoner. And again, this is very, very interesting. Not very survivable. 5 health with a 6-up save and a 6-up ward. Is also a 2-cast wizard. So cast 2 spells. He's got the ability to do, with his chain staff, to do a shooting attack, which is 12-inch range, 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, rend 1 d3 damage. It's got critical mortals, but I think those critical mortals are more for just kind of the endorphin releases of that one time you rolled 3 6s in a game and you felt like a god, versus having any real effect. At least on these units. When you roll in like 30, 40 days, it starts to have an effect. And then he's got a bad combat profile, but he's a wizard, so that's fine. His main trick, if you will, is he's a deep strike redeployer, which I find quite interesting. The first one, first of the 2 abilities he's got is the Minions of the Silver Tower, which you do in your deployment phase. You pick a friendly unit that has not been deployed to be the target. That target is set up in reserve in the Silver Tower. It's now been deployed. Now, there's no wounds limit on this. There's no model count to this. Just pick a unit. So we don't know what units you're going to be able to take in the Tzeentch roster. Used to be you could take Slaves to Darkness units in Tzeentch. I think we'll probably see that go away. And so You might want to put one of your fragile flamer units in reserve so they can't get shot off the board. There's a bunch of options as to who and why you might want to put something off the board. But in your movement phase, you can use the Book of Profane Secrets, where you pick a friendly unit in the Silver Tower to be the target, set up that target on the battlefield wholly within 12 inches of this unit and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So just your classic deep strike with a couple of extra steps that you got to pay points for. But where it gets really spicy is his spell, or their spell, sorry, it's a demon, that you do in your hero phase called the Divert Realm Gate, which is cast on a 7. Unit setup this turn using the unit's Book of Profane Secrets ability can be set up wholly within 18 inches of this unit and more than 7 inches from all enemy units instead of the distances in the ability. So now you can deep strike a unit 18 inches away from the Gaunt Summoner and only 7 inches away from your opponent. Now, you can already guarantee charges from deep strike because you have cheater dice, you have those destiny dice. But now, 7 inches away, you can just kick ass. This is really good if you have a really big combat block, which Tzeentch does struggle with. Zangor might be the thing that you try and use, probably not Garrick Acolytes. Maybe you'll use some of the Enlightened on disc as well, might be something that you decide to do for a big deep strike. Although the problem with the Enlightened is that they actually move really fast, so you don't normally need to put them into deep strike and reserve. Maybe you put some flamers down, and so they can get really close into your enemy's lines and they can do a bunch of shooting. Who knows? But it's very fun. Now, the next War Scroll has got me super excited. It's one of my favorite War Scrolls because it had a lot of interactivity in the previous version of Age of Sigmar, and it's back. The Curseling, the Eye of Tzeentch, is a 2-cast wizard with a kick-ass model that has got 6 health with a 3-up armor save, and so is quite survivable, to be honest. Now, it's got a pretty okay combat profile with 5 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 4s, rend 1, damage 2. And you'll be like, oh, Rob, that's actually not that good. But he's got his own spell, which is Infusion Arcana, which casts on a 5, where if you cast it, you add 1 to rend and the damage output of that melee weapon. So it goes to 5 attacks, hit on 4s and wound on 4s. I agree, that's pretty shit. But rend 2, damage 3. So 15 attacks from 15 damage potentially from the Curseling is pretty funny. Use all of your Destiny dice for maybe the most comedy battle of all time, who knows? But that's pretty fun. Now, he's also got a shooting profile, which is 18-inch range, which is pretty good, which is D6 shots, 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, but importantly has got the Weirdflame ability. And what's cool about that, as we know, that means he's going to be able to potentially just, at an 18-inch range, just try and do a couple of shots, get that burning effect on a unit, and then start using that burning mechanic in the game. So it's nice that that's on there. And now he's got his fun ability. The Disruptor of the Arcane is a passive ability. Each time this unit unbinds a spell, and because he's a level 2 wizard, he can unbind 2 spells. Roll a dice. On a 4-up, subtract 1 from the power level of the enemy wizard that used that spell ability to a minimum of 0 until the start of your next turn. Now, where this gets really interesting is if an enemy wizard is 2 casts. They cast their first spell, and then you unbind it, either because you've rolled it or because you use Destiny dice, because you're a big old Tzeentch cheater. Then you roll a dice, and sure, it's on a 4+, so it's not very reliable. On a 4+, he can't cast, well, that wizard can't then cast another spell. That's huge. It means your opponent's going to have to immediately try to cast the best spells on their first spell. It means you've always got access to Destiny dice to try to shut stuff down. There's a really interesting interactivity between you and your opponent, understanding how that works, and then even then, it not working all the time and it happening on a 4 or stopping on a 4+. I like that. I think that's fun, super engaging. I'm immediately going to go and pick myself up a Curseling. I think that's really cool and I really like it. So just very, very cool. Next up, we're going to look at the Pink Horrors, which are super famous if you're a Tzeentch player. They come as a unit of 10, and you kind of combo them with Blue Horrors and Brimstone Horrors. A unit of 10 Pink Horrors have got 2 health each with a 6-up save, and they also have a 6-up ward save. They have a shooting attack, which is 2 attacks per model at 12-inch range, and they hit on 4s, wound on 4s. They got no rend, the damage 1, but they have the Weirdflame ability. So you're not really trying to do a ton of damage with these. Instead, what you're trying to do is just, again, proc that burning ability in an enemy unit. And they used to be used aggressively as objective holders and screens. They've only got a control value of 1. And so they're going to, that unit of 10 is only going to have a total of 10. So maybe we'll see some control value changes also in some of the spells or maybe some of the units for Tzeentch, but that's not what they're there for. What pink horrors do is they die, which is going to sound odd. Why would I want a unit to die? They have a passive called Lunatic Demise, where each time a model in this unit is slain, before removing the model, pick one of the following effects. The first one is Split, and this is its most famous ability, where you pick a friendly Blue Horrors and Brimstone Horrors unit within 12 inches of this unit. You return up to 2 slain Blue Horror models to that unit. So you no longer add models on or even generate a new unit, but instead, if you've bought in your army list a unit of Blue Horrors and Brimstone Horrors and a unit of Pink Horrors, if some of the Blue Horrors die, when the Pink Horrors die, they're going to add models into Blue Horrors. This is much, quote-unquote, worse than it was in Age of Sigmar 3, but Pink Horrors were always either broken or kind of useless. And this is going to be especially interesting with no Battle Shock being gone. I think hordes or big units, lots of infantry, are going to be really interesting with no Battle Shock gone, especially for their control value. And we also haven't seen the War Scroll for Blue and Brimstone Horrors yet. So we don't know if this is really good or kind of good or difficult. It's definitely going to be hard to manage. And it's just kind of the same as it was, but also similar, but also different. Okay, and then finally got Petty Vengeance. Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll dice on a 4+, inflict 1 mortal wound on the damaged target. So if you kill the entire unit of Pink Horrors, then you're going to take 5 mortal damage in return. Is it worth it? I don't really know. Depends what you're killing them with. If you're killing them with 20 elite infantry, maybe it's not that big a deal. If you kill them with a monster, 5 mortal damage is a real problem, to be honest, especially if they've taken some weird flame burning attacks. I don't know. And that's it. That's all of the War Scrolls that we've seen. And I got to say that this has kind of really reignited my excitement for Age of Sigmar 4. I think it's the best faction preview we've seen so far. I think some of the abilities seem very strong, but actually seeing not just rules taken away, but actually seeing some rules added. This is up there, in my opinion, especially the burning mechanic. Whether or not it's strong or not strong, this is up there, in my opinion, with the Skaven Gnawhole ability to pop up and make the game feel thematic, which is really cool. So I like that, and I really like the Curseling War Scroll because it felt like it engaged with my opponent in it, which is always something I'm always looking for. So let me know if you think it's the best preview so far. Let me know which preview you're looking forward to. Thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Twitch chat and also everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. You should join up. We've got a Discord. It's super fun. Thousands of you watch this video, so you should definitely join up and go hang out in our Discord, start chatting in all of our faction chats that we've got. And then, let me know what you think about it. So thanks for watching the video. See you guys soon.